The bottom is always love. The root is always love. And when I can come back to the root that is always love, then none of the performative nature of that Cancer moon needs to stick anymore. That can fall away. The giving to get, the trying to finally just obtain what it is that I most desire by just giving and giving and giving, that can fall away. And then the most authentic expression of that can come into being.
Welcome to Stars and Stars with Issa. This is the show where we look to the stars above with the stars below. I'm Issa Nakazawa, your host and resident astrologer, and I am super excited to be joined today by Sonya Renee Taylor, an author, activist, poet, and visionary behind The Body Is Not an Apology, a global movement for radical self-love and collective liberation. Sonya's work inspires millions to embrace themselves more fully and guides us all back to a self that exists prior to shame and conditioning. As she says, quote, "Divine is an inherent state." Sonya is also an astrologer in her own right, leading workshops to help people understand their birth charts more deeply and come into their full power. As a Cancer moon, this drive to nurture and provide collective care fuels her, and her Scorpio stellium shows up to go even deeper and investigate the true motive behind this desire to care, which she names love. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Well, Sonya, it is such a joy to have you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. We've been trying to get you for a minute, and my entire family who will be listening, I have a Scorpio sister, I'm a Scorpio, a Pisces sister, and 2 Aquarius parents, and we're all in the Sonya fan club. So this means a lot to all of us.
That's so sweet. Well, I'm delighted to be here. I'm super excited.
One of the things that I wanted to, just express a lot of gratitude for in your work and the way you move in the world, which to me are one and the same, is I think for me the thing, and you and I are both Scorpio stelliums, which for listeners means we have a significant amount of planets in Scorpio. That's why I was really interested to speak with you specifically about the cosmos, because both of us, we're truth seekers and we really want to confront the truth. So we're talking about radical self-love, radical as in getting to the root, but also within self-love within these contexts of deconditioning, and always drawing these parallels between this and kind of exploding the notion of the discrete self by always reminding us to contextualize it within power, right? Which is very Scorpio. Where is the power, right? The true power, and also the power of the inherited identities that we, like Baldwin and all of our ancestors, we're forced to reckon with in these bodies. Yeah. So that's number one in your work that made me resonate. And when I was coming into the spiritual community, and I'm still finding my way in terms of co-conspirators, I think one of the hardest things has been feeling like the political spaces that I grew up in, the movement spaces, were very hostile towards spirituality, which comes from a lot of complex things of internalized kind of colonial logics. But then spiritual spaces are actually very apolitical.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious for you if you've found in your own use of astrology that it actually does elucidate the very thing that your radical self-love work does, where it's actually about these spirals of connections with emotional inheritance, ancestral inheritance. I'm just trying to help listeners understand that astrology is not just self-help.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I find fascinating about sort of the apolitical nature of spiritual work, or people who are endeavoring to be spiritual, the underlying principle of spirituality is divine connection, right? It is that we are all one. It is that everything that is happening to both you, the individual fractal of the divine, but that also means it is happening to every other fractal of the divine, right? And so how is it that I can claim to be in touch with that experience of oneness and also not care about what's happening to other people? How is it that I am wildly individualistic, except that the entire principle of what it is that I'm exploring is that there is no such thing as the individual, which must mean that what happens to me happens to the collective, and that what happens to the collective happens to me, which means that I need to care about what's happening to the collective. And the ways in which identity gets sort of foisted on us inside of these social constructs inherently impact our ability to be in the fullest expression of our soul selves. And so that to me means that there must be something I'm meant to do about the way that identity impacts us. If identity is creating a barrier to the most full, authentic expression of your soul, and that notion of identity is conscripted and reified and cemented in the social dynamic of the world, then that means there is something that we have put in between us and the soul. It's our responsibility to remove it. It's our responsibility to interrogate it. It's our responsibility to say, what's the story that we made up about identity that keeps us in the story of separation? That's spiritual work. So I don't understand how it is that we could be doing spiritual work and not be doing that work. Actually, it's an abdication of the responsibility of spirit to me.
So well put. And I was smiling listening to you because I think of one of the key words of Capricorn is responsibility. And I think you just kind of modeled the best expression of that responsibility. But I want to take us kind of back to young Sonya. And first, I'm going to share with listeners who don't know your chart yet that you are a Scorpio sun, a Cancer moon, and a Capricorn ascendant. And we always start with the rising sign because we know it's the most personal signature. It orients the beautiful wheel, and it gives us an indication of the helm of your ship or what your soul is here to manifest through and as. And I want to start simply because I like thinking about archetypes simply because I think it kind of helps us ground a little bit. And I love thinking about Capricorn as the mountain because it embodies all of the different keywords of structure and time. And I like to think of Saturn as this like gravity, this weight, right, that pulls us down and sees us through. So I wonder if you could journey us back a little bit to your younger self. If there's like a memory, because I know you're a Cancer moon, so you are the memory keeper, but I wonder if you can share like a memory of your younger self where you kind of started first feeling either the weight of that responsibility you're kind of already talking about, and maybe even just on a personal young person level, like that awareness of these larger systems shaping the conditions of both you and your family. Like if you can talk a little bit about that early awareness.
Yeah, I mean, there were certainly experiences in the conditions of my family that set that up very early. I was born to teenage parents, and they both experienced addiction very young. I was born during the 80s crack epidemic, and it absolutely touched my family personally. And so there were ways in which a very early orientation of my existence was, hey, kid, you're going to have to take care of some stuff because the people who are supposed to do that aren't. But I think in a lighter, less scorpionic anecdote,
as you speak to a Scorpio stellium,
right. You're like, yes. But I think what I want to highlight is that there are, yes, these big, intense, structural, systemic, personalized ways that energy came into my existence. But there were also just ways that were like, oh, I'm a kid and this energy is part of my orientation. I don't remember where I saw it, but I must have been like third grade. And I think I saw it maybe on the news that like styrofoam was non-biodegradable and that it was filling up the landfills and it was destroying the planet. And when I tell you I was on a rampage in my family, we have got to stop using this styrofoam. I had my family was like, oh my gosh, girl. And I was like, y'all, it never goes away. It's killing the planet. I was in third grade. I was 9 years old. And I was like, this is our responsibility. We cannot keep living like this since 9 years old. So that to me is like one of those early, like Saturnian, you are responsible moments that I took on very early.
I love that. And one of the things that's also really interesting is we obviously look to where your ascendant ruler is located in your natal chart. And you have Saturn in detriment in Leo because, as we know, in the trad system, Aquarius and Cap are ruled by Saturn. And then Uranus comes later in the modern system. So it's opposite sign Leo, obviously. It's in detriment. And obviously Leo is this like visible sign, this warm sign. Saturn is far away and cold. And I really think about one of the interesting ways that I find Saturn in detriment expresses itself is there is kind of this anticipation of exclusion and not belonging. Can you talk to me a little bit about that, like that kind of anticipating exclusion, and then how that's also allowed you to kind of generate belonging, but also maybe some of the compulsions behind that too?
Yeah. My friend Colin of Queer Cosmos calls it dress rehearsing tragedy. And and I was like, you could get out of my business.
That's so good. That's what
It's so
it is.
good. I mean, it's been such a piece of my conscious work to be like, the universe is not trying to punish you, Sonya. The universe is not trying to punish you, Sonya. And I think this is also that Saturn in Leo, because Leo is like, it's about me. And then Saturn is like, here's the harsh, rigid realities of life. And I'm like, right, you gave them to me because you want to hurt me. Like
Oh, yeah.
it
The
feels very personal.
personalization.
It feels so personal. Like, oh, I did something. And it's about, and so there's been this important piece of work for me that's actually mostly just been about recontextualizing the assignment that Saturn is. That Saturn is not here to be a harsh, mean, imposing, like entity in my existence. That Saturn is here to continually redirect me to the ability to build in integrity and authenticity that thing that will stand beyond my physical personal time. I often describe it when I'm talking about it. I'm like, Saturn is rigidity and harshness and confinement and constriction and restriction and barriers and boundaries. And it is also commitment and integrity and hard work and discipline and rigor over time to build something that withstands the test of time. And Saturn is the first thing until you figure out the work it wants you to do. And then it becomes the second thing. And after you get that, it wants me to do this. And when I become committed and integrity to this practice, Saturn says, great, put in the reps. And then thank you. Here's your reward. Here is your built-in accountability. Here's some pressure. Here's some integrity that you have to learn to deeply embody. And then when you do, I keep imagining this South Node hitting Saturn. And I really heard a few months ago, I was like, oh, Saturn is like an inheritance sitting in a trust. And it's like when you have matured enough, Saturn, when you have matured enough, then the trust will be unlocked and you can have access to what is inside the trust. And I really have felt like, I'm approaching the time where that trust will be unlocked and I will have access to the full range of that Scorpio stellium power, but not until, and I'm not surprised that it's happening, like as I complete this Chiron return and all of these things. It's just like, once we know that your underlying motives, Scorpio, have been cleared such that you see them, so that you can operate not from default, not from trauma, not from wounding, and using your power to avoid feeling what there is to feel, but instead to be accountable to your own energy, then you can have the full range of this power.
One of the lines of inquiry that I prepared is both of us have a background in poetry. That was my life for most of my life. I was in Youth Speaks, which is an organization out here.
Wow.
You have, Mercury, the planet of communication, in a tight conjunction with your sun, your ego, your purpose, your battery, and Mars, which is the planet ruler in the trad system of Scorpio. And so language is, really central to your star map. And it's also really central to how the world knows you and experiences you. And it ties also into, you have all of this Taurus in the fifth house of that inner child, but the archetype of the performant artist as well as the child. And then you have your ascendant ruler in Leo. So there's a lot around performance and shining a light through creative expression and through kind of performance poetry as an example, one of the many examples and vehicles for you. But one of the things that I struggled with, so it's more a question, because you could say that you didn't struggle with this, was I quickly became known for being someone who had this kind of inspiring, strong, fierce voice on stage, which was true. It was not performative. And it was a transformative vehicle for me throughout my life. So it was actually a way I was transforming and creating confidence, But then it also became a little isolating because I actually wasn't being held and known for the messier, quieter parts of me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have
Yeah.
ever shared that experience of understanding that and still feeling a bit lonely or still feeling like there's this whole part of you that isn't really being engaged. A, does that resonate at all? And like B, how have you learned to kind of bridge those different like variances or registers of vulnerability?
100% resonates. I think that I needed to really own the part of myself that enjoyed the performance of a certain level of invincibility. That the part of me, the part of me that was like, I, again, this, and I think there's some of this Saturnian Capricorn nature in me that's just like, I got this, and I could perform. I got this, and I could perform it on a stage. I could perform it. And what I realized is that it was absolutely creating an experience of isolation and loneliness and not being, and then subconsciously, because we thrive in crisis and chaos, I would need to create some sort of emotional crisis and chaos as the vehicle for me to break down so that I could actually be seen and held.
Oh, that makes sense.
And I was like, oh, I am creating these experiences of intensity and pain and drama and fear and devastation, both creating them and, to be clear, but actually these are not separate, creating them both internally and also as a result projecting them externally and living in the context of those things, because that was the way my whole world was oriented, so that I could actually have the experience of being vulnerable. And I realized that, and this is a very recent revelation. Now, the amount of, it was interesting because when I left performance poetry, where the entire presentation is, here's my analysis, here's my epiphany, here's my awareness, spoken articulately, fully embodied, have it. There's nothing else you need to do here. I've done and dusted it. And then moving into the work of the body is not an apology, where I really did sort of make the offering my own vulnerability. But even still, I had to come to see, I was like, oh, it's almost like a telecast where there's a 5-second delay. And it's like, oh, by the time you see this, I've already cleared that.
Yes.
And so it looks like real time vulnerability, but it's because there's a 5-second delay. By the time it gets to you, it's done and dusted. I'm fine. I'm sorted. And I kept feeling life push me to, that is not authenticity. That's not vulnerability, Sonya. And like, you figuring it out so that no one else ever has to know that you don't have it figured out is not vulnerability. Vulnerability is saying, I don't know. And it's really been a journey to even begin to get to the place of that. And I think that I did a good job cultivating community and people who love me enough that I could do that with them. But it was a very small, select, discrete circle. And I have felt over the last year or two, life being like, that's so cute. No, that's so cute. That's so cute. You got everybody fooled, Sonya, but not us.
Actually, this is a weird question that I have for you, because I've been thinking about safety a lot, because I don't resonate with that term for a lot of obvious reasons. My chart, and then Baldwin's over me, and he always kind of talks about my danger doesn't make you safe. And I've been thinking about, is it actually about me needing to feel safe within myself, as opposed to always hoping that someone else will give me the perfect emotional safety to then reveal myself? And I'm sure the answer is somewhere in between. Do you have any wisdom or insight on that kind of question?
So it's interesting because this feels like it's a big piece of my work around my Cancer moon. And the way that I often talk about Cancer is like, or not talk about Cancer, but the way I talk about the moon in our charts is it's the location, like the whatever sign it is demonstrating the characteristics that we use to externalize the experience of safety, stability, and security.
Boom.
Right. And so when we're seeking that external experience of safety, stability, and security, the reason that we are doing that is because we've been taught to externalize an experience that can actually only occur internally. Actually, the only location of stability, security, and safety is an internal experience. And the way that I talk about it is the moon, connected to Cancer, the mother, the last time that you were assured, not even assured, but had the greatest chances of an experience of safety, stability, and security uninterrupted was in the womb. That's pretty much by the time you came out of there, all bets were off. You're at the whim. You're at the whim of the conditions of it.
Sometimes.
And even in the womb. And that's why I said, exactly. I was like closest to, right? Like not even guaranteed, but closest to.
The specificity there, yeah,
is important. But for me, the way that I talk about that is because where we are in the womb is in the location that is the closest that we will get until we leave this planet to the place where we came from, which is the ultimate experience of safety, stability, and security. And the reason that we have it in the womb is so that we have the experience of gestating with that divine knowledge. So that we're forming, it's literally being formed inside of our cellular experience as we are growing arms and legs and eyeballs and cells and skin. The experience of safety, stability, and security is being embedded in us. So when we are trying to find it outside of ourselves, what we're trying to find is a thing that is actually the illusion. And the truth is, it's back in here. And when I'm able to come back in here, I know I'm safe. I know I'm safe because I actually know that the entire cosmic experience is one that's I've already said yes to, that there's actually nothing occurring, no matter how horrific it appears that it is, that my soul hasn't already said yes to, knew it was already going to figure out, deal with, manage, and then was going to return to the ultimate cosmic experience of safety, stability, and security. In its most simple form, that's really what it is I came from love, I'm a return to love, and in the middle, my job is to see if I can remember that those two things are true.
That feels like a sermon straight from a resource Cancer moon. I'm all, wow. Because, that's such a beautiful, the memory of, it's kind of remembering this before the separation or the trance of separateness.
Exactly.
There was this memory of love. I feel like Cancers really channel a lot and they have that kind of intuitive clairvoyance. And Scorpios actually, to me, can be quite nerdy. In a sense of like academic, and kind of precise. I'm curious how you view or how you experience your Scorpio sun distinctly from, like, what are the meaningful differences between your Scorpio and your Cancer and what they yearn for, and then how they kind of orient you in relationship?
I really relate to this piece of the like sort of nerdy Scorpio, which to me is mostly, it's the investigatory Scorpio.
Yes.
It's the Scorpio who's like, I need to know how this works. And not until I get to the why will I be satisfied, right? It can be a very insular, very self-focused thing. Like I'm not trying to be relational when I'm in that space. I am trying to sort out the thing. And so it can be the energy of whatever you got going on in there doesn't matter, because until I dissect this, I have no desire to interact with you. And that Cancer moon, it's such a place of longing in me, right? It really creates just this deep experience of longing. It's also, though, it's my favorite part of myself, like I love who I am when I'm in my Cancer moon energy. I'm just like, I'm sweet and I want to take care of you and I want to nurture you and I want to feed you and I want to cuddle you and I want to make sure you're comfortable. And I love that expression of myself. And part of the sort of the Scorpio sun in these days has learned to be like, can you dissect the why of that, Sonya? Can you take this sun and look at that moon and figure out what's the motive underneath it? Because it's not that you need to get rid of this, but you do need to know why you're doing it. so that when you offer whatever that is, you're offering it from the most authentic location you can offer it from. And so that Scorpio sun has really made me like get into the just the nitty gritty, the minutia of like what's really going on with this desire to care and love and support and take care of and just the ooey gooiness of you, like what's really going on. And and every time I get to the bottom of it, it's there's always, like for me it really is tied to my mother wound. But I love my therapist. Shout out to Dr. Jocelyn Bronte, who I've been seeing for 14 years, who always just reminds me, like, I stop there and then she's like, that's not the bottom of it. And then I'm like, you're right. The bottom is always love. The root is always love. And when I can come back to the root that is always love, then none of the performative nature of that Cancer moon needs to stick anymore. That can fall away. The giving to get, the trying to finally just obtain what it is that I most desire by just giving and giving and giving, that can fall away. And then the most authentic expression of that can come into being.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I feel like Cancers often talk about this learning and honing of their giving nature and learning how to give without kind of a manipulation, but also learning how to receive, I think weirdly can be difficult for Cancer, Leo, and Virgo placements. And, you've been doing amazing work on like chironic healing and wounding. And I'm just curious, we started our conversation offline about your Chiron return, and we know Saturn and Uranus and Neptune are in Aries now. So I wonder about that kind of relationship between your moon square Chiron for you.
It's the most challenging aspect of my life. Like, oftentimes I lament, like, if I could have the ease that I have in, building in community and developing friendships and culture, I was like, there's just this ease that exists in every other aspect of my life that is just like, sorry, not here, pumpkin. This is where you came to practice.
Ooh, I love that.
And, that it's interesting because that Aries energy in the fourth house for me can really be an energy of needing. I know in my human design profile, I'm a 2/4 hermit opportunist. And so there's a part of me that is just like, me by myself, please. I need to, on my own, and what I think that also does, that sense of that story of being on your own. And this is really what I feel like my Scorpio stellium offers me. It is like every location, your Mars actions, your Mercury actions, your North Node, every other location that's around here co-present with this, get to the bottom of it. Like, it is not that you need to change anything. It's that you need to understand the driver of all of the things that are moving in your life. And so that Chiron in Aries is a constant reminder that usually it shows up for me as moving too quickly when I'm trying to avoid pain, right? So that's that Chiron in Aries, is you're moving too quickly because you don't want to feel the thing you need to feel. And then that Cancer moon is usually is actually like where you want to merge. When are you being asked to actually walk yourself home in your own dignity? Like that piece. When you said that was just so profound to me. It's just like, oh, walk myself home, right? Like that moon, come back to yourself. It's in you. Walk yourself home. And you'll always, and like, can I be in touch with, thank you, Jupiter and Taurus, can I be in touch with the fact that I am constantly accompanied? That's the point of life. That's the point of being on the planet, is that you didn't drop here into aloneness. You dropped here with squirrels and pigeons and red cardinals and trees and streams. You came here accompanied, but you have a value on one kind of accompaniment as better than another kind of accompaniment, which is the story of separation. What if every aspect of existence that was given to you is always with you, which means that you're never walking alone? but sometimes you will walk by yourself, and that is appropriate too.
One of the things that really resonates with your work is that I never really resonated with body positivity. I always loved body neutrality and acceptance as really intentional frameworks, because I feel like there's so much pressure on women of color specifically to always be excellent, to always strive, which my Aries moon is extremely susceptible to. I'm way too attuned to that.
Yeah.
And it makes me hate myself a lot more. And then it also kind of enables a lot of judgment to others, because there can be kind of, I think, distorted Aries energy too, and Cap. Both can be like, you're being lazy. It's kind of bootstrappy. Aries and Cap. They're like, well, did you do enough work before you complain?
Have you tried hard enough? Have you tried hard enough? Always.
And I can be very guilty of that. I don't share it because it's an internal monologue. But I think body neutrality kind of diffuses that in me, that striving compulsion. And it kind of just says, you're enough as you are in this body. Because if that's not the assumption we're moving from, then it feeds this kind of bottomless appetite that Scorpio is also susceptible to, that a lot of these energies feel like, okay, great. Is there a mountain to climb? Is there a goal to reach? Because then, you know, and I wonder if you can speak to how you kind of came to that, because that's actually difficult to arrive to and stay there in that framework.
Yeah, I can see very clearly how body positivity came in to co-opt and capitalize on the work that is radical self-love. It was just like, you know, which is capitalism is savvy. It's like, oh, I can turn this into a consumerized product. For me, what radical self-love was always positing, that has been so profoundly helpful, is that there is nothing for me to do about my body, because it is inherently, and I think this was the distinction between me and between radical self-love work and the location of body neutrality, because I'm proposing, radical self-love is proposing that the body is not just sufficient, it's glorious, it's divine, and that you don't have to try to make it be that. You don't have to try. There's no efforting in that. It just is. And that actually the story that you have to try is the system of white, cis, hetero, capitalist patriarchy telling you that you need to do something, which generally involves working yourself to death and spending some money to get to divine. And what radical self-love is always positing is that divine is an inherent state, the same way a sunset is divine, the same way when this tree outside of my house is blooming because spring has come and it intrinsically knows that it is time to give flowers. It doesn't have opinions about its flowers, but we do. We see them and we're like, oh my God, that's gorgeous. Oh my God, I smell you. That's amazing. It didn't have to try. It just was. And the receptive nature of life is to delight in that which is life-giving. And the body is just life-giving. There's nothing you needed to do to make it that way. And so can I just recognize that if there is work that's being asked to be done, it's not to love my body, it's to decondition the stories that told me I shouldn't. It's to look at you and be like, oh, you're trying to manipulate me. And that is why I think I'm supposed to be different than I am. Because you have said that there is power, control, resource that is available. And if I hate me, you have more of it. Oh, I'm out of that game. That's it. And once I get out of that game, the natural state is actually there. There's nothing for me to do. Yeah. It's just there. You know, and the only reason it's not neutral to me is, again, because there's nothing that I find divine that I feel neutral about.
Yeah,
I don't feel
that
neutral.
Word is just so boring.
I don't feel neutral. I don't feel neutral. I don't feel neutral. I'm a sixth placement in Scorpio. Right. I was like, I have a stellium in Scorpio. What I'm not is neutral. But
it's like the chalants, like no chalants.
Right. Yeah, no, there's no chalants over here. It's a cute name, but it don't do nothing else for me.
That was so beautiful.
here for love. And again, I think what I realized was like, oh, radical self-love was this life priming me for a bigger revelation about love, which is love is the state of all existence. It is the inalterable, inalienable, foundational principle of existence, which means everything occurring in life is occurring from the energy of love. And it is our field of distortion that confuses that. But once I see past the field of distortion, there's nothing there but what has always been and what will always be, which is love.
Ah, I remember thinking, how am I going to do these interviews remote? Like, how am I going to feel the energy exchange? And I've just been proven wrong so many times. Like, I just feel so much. And I just did Laraji, Ish Butler of Diggable Planets and You. And it just feels like everyone's in the same cipher of where we're at. But one of the things that I think is so helpful about how you talk about this specific radical self-love work framework is choicefulness. And I think it really helps listeners who get a little bit stuck, because deconditioning work is very rigorous. And I almost feel like it's ritualistic, where every day, if you're not making active choices about what your media input, all of the different things, the messages that you're getting fed, none of this really makes sense because you're still in the swirl. So I know you've said it many other places, but I wonder if you could, for listeners who don't know where to start, like, what are those choices that we can make to start to kind of hone our own universe and the messages that we are sending ourselves to make this a little bit easier on ourselves?
Particularly right now, we are, profoundly at the whim of these messages, right? And I think that the first location is to be like, can I start to notice how this makes me feel? Can I actually be like, all right, what am I engaging? And what do I feel like when I engage it? Then can I begin, just replace this one thing? What is that? I was like, I don't want to do that. So here's the thing that comes up is when you take the thing out, you're going to feel something, because usually that thing is sitting in place of an actual emotion that wants to be dealt with. Can you find the most tender part of yourself, the most nurturing, loving part of yourself? And can you welcome it from that location? Just do it with one small thing and just practice. And the floodgates will likely open. All the things will come up. And then you're just going to say, and this too is love. It's the favorite thing my friend Andrea Gibson said to their friend. Can you see everything you're feeling right now? And can you name it love? And if you could just start doing that practice, it will open up something that I believe will expand.
What a gift. Thank you so much, Sonya, for just sharing that. And I feel like your Cancer moon, and I feel like it's the Chiron too. Like, your chart is divine, and all of those, that Mercury, Sun, Mars conjunction is just blessed all of us. So thank you so much. And I'm so just like deeply comforted knowing that you're in the world doing astrology.
Thank you.
Please let our listeners know how to stay connected. I don't know if you're doing any more Chiron workshops or what how can people get their chart read with you?
Yeah. So my list of chart request is very, 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 very long. I have no idea when I'm ever going to get through the list of people who are signed up for reading. So, but if you want to get your name on the list, you can do that at Sonya Renee at SonyaReneeTaylor.com, and I'll send you the waiting list link. I am doing an in-person astrology retreat on the unlocking your superpowers and understanding stelliums in our charts. I'm doing it at Kripalu Center for Yoga and Wellness in Massachusetts, June 5th through 7th. And you can go to kripalu.com. That's KRIPALU.com. And you can register there. I would love, 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 love to have you. It'd be my first time doing an in-person multi-day astrology workshop. So I'm super excited about doing that. It's super fun. And then I feel like there are other things cooking, but they're cooking. They're not quite yet ready to be out in the world. But you can follow me on all the platforms for now. IG, they're all at my name, Sonya Renee Taylor. But you can also become a Patreon and help support this work and the continued unfolding of it. We have some beautiful things coming up on Patreon for our community. And you can do that also at Sonya Renee, patreon.com/Sonya Renee Taylor.
Amazing. Thank you, Sonya. Maybe I'll come in June.
Thank you.
Shit.
Oh, I hope
wanna
you do. I would
experience
love
this.
that.
Like,
I
I'm
would
free
love
in
that.
June. You see me and
Do
you're like,
it.
okay, co-conspirator
I'm like,
present.
hey, Issa, hey. Yes,
I'm like, I am the
100%.
embodiment of November 13th, round 2.
Yes. Love it.
Round 2.
Bring it
go.
on. Bring it on.
That was Sonya, who is a Scorpio sun. As always, to end the show, I want to leave you with some key takeaways we can all benefit from, inspired by our stars chart. So, one of the most profound things that Sonya shared in our conversation today was her relationship to Saturn, which is especially significant as she's a Capricorn rising, which means Saturn is her chart ruler, the planet that really describes the helm of her life. And her Saturn is in Leo, which in traditional astrology is what we consider to be in detriment. Now, just to remind y'all what that means, when a planet is in detriment, it means that it's in a sign that operates very differently from its natural expression. So, as you know, Saturn is associated with discipline, restraint, time, and structure, and it traditionally rules both Capricorn and Aquarius. Leo, on the other hand, is a sign that's expressive, visible, creative. It wants to shine, to be seen, and to take up space. So you can imagine when Saturn's in a Leo, there can be a tension between visibility and responsibility, between the desire to be fully expressed and the instinct to hold back and self-regulate, or sometimes to even anticipate rejection. But what was so powerful and illuminating is how Sonya reframes this. Instead of seeing Saturn in detriment just as a weakness or a challenge, she described it as an inheritance sitting in a trust, something you don't get full access to until you've developed the integrity to hold it. And I found that so profound because it shifts this question from why is this hard for me to what is being refined in me before I'm fully seen. It suggests that the parts of us that hold the most visibility and influence and power are sometimes intentionally slowed down, not as punishment, but as protection. So that when we do step forward, we're not performing from wounding or overcompensating for insecurity, but we're actually rooting down in something real and earned. And in that way, Saturn isn't here to just deny us. It's here to make sure that what we build and what we embody can actually last. And that's it for our download from the cosmos this week. If you like today's episode, please leave a comment to keep the conversation going. Hit that subscribe button, and remember, we're live on YouTube every Wednesday answering your cosmic questions. Thank y'all so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.